Our next speaker is Dr. Kenneth, and as he makes his way up, I want to say Kenneth is an academic economist. For those of us who know him to be a very capable strategic writer, and he has master's degrees in law, financial economics, as well as a PhD from BITS. He is also a member, serves the country as a member of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much for this invitation and greetings to people in Mpumalanga. Special thank you to Kenneth and Tsweni. Thank you very much for inviting me to this event and congratulations on this Energy Summit. Normally when I talk at universities, my lectures are an hour and a half or 2 hours. So I'll wait for people to tell me when to stop talking. I must say, it's very good of the Premier and the Mpumalanga Executive to invite me back. We did have an engagement in February this year, which I found extremely interesting. And thank you very much. I appreciate being back to talk about things further and to see what incredible progress is being made by this province in getting ahead of this issue. This is probably one of the most important strategic economic issues facing the democratic South Africa. How do we manage this energy transition that is coming onto us like an unstoppable tsunami? The world is going through an energy transition, and it brings with it both serious risks and also serious opportunities. And I think the work of this province and the leadership of this province, the leadership of the country, we've heard Dr. Olber talk about what's happening, and I think they're doing great work at that level as well, will determine whether the outcome is inclusive, is expansionary, or whether this wave hits us so hard that we have rising unemployment, further rising inequality. I think both of those outcomes are extremely possible. And it depends on the leadership of this time to get ourselves ready for this. And it's this kind of event where we bring people together to think about how do we mitigate the risks and how do we enhance the opportunities so that this is a good outcome, this energy transition, and that it's a just outcome rather than one which could be negative for us. I see the Johannesburg Energy Indaba happened yesterday, I suspect. There's been others in other places, but Mpumalanga seems to be slightly ahead of the game, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that you are ahead because, in fact, the whole world, I suspect, even New Zealand, is looking at what is happening here in Mpumalanga. This is one of the world's coal-producing regions. This is one of the world's power stations of the world. And if the energy transition is going to be done properly in this province, then it can show the world and South Africa how it can be done. So the stakes are extremely high. The world is watching. This is ground zero for South Africa's energy transition. And can we make it a just one and inclusive one? As I was driving here this morning through the mist, some of it man-made mist, I suspect, to be polite, I saw that coal fleet, that historical coal fleet. It's been here my whole life. I do live in the province next door. been here the whole life, you drive past, you see the coal mines, you see the conveyor belts, you see the trucks, you see the chimneys, and you know this is Mpumalanga. You keep driving, you see the lovely tourism and all the other things. But for now, this is that part of Mpumalanga. And maybe when I come to the Energy Summit in 2032, when I look out of my car window, I will see wind farms. I will see solar panels. There'll be less man-madeness and more naturalness. And that will be a good thing. And that will be, and there will be factories, as Dr. Olga says, of people making components, making the parts to the wind farm, people making parts to the solar panels, people working on the power stations that have been transformed from coal-powered stations. Some of them will continue to be coal-powered. They've just been built. The one around the corner here, they're still built. There will be coal-powered power stations in the mix. But there will also be new energy sources. And Mpumalanga will use the benefit that it has of being at the heart of the national grid to have said, well, we take a step ahead. We're going to get ahead and we're going to start supplying South Africa with electricity. And you know South Africa really would like you to give them consistent electricity. So that's by way of introduction, Premier and Executive. My notes will just quickly run through what I suppose is the economic context in which this is happening. We have been through a terrible time. As they say, we make history, but not in conditions of our own making. We've been hit by a global pandemic. We've been hit by riots and looting. We've been hit by floods. And now there's other things on the horizon as well, that worry us. So we are, in that context, South Africa is looking to have an economic recovery. I see Mpumalanga is also an economic recovery plan. This energy component of that recovery plan is a vital component. If you look at the list, I think you can see the slides. We speak about infrastructure, we speak about energy security, we speak about tourism recovery, we speak about green economy, etc., food security. Now, the energy is what we're talking about today at the Energy Summit. We must locate that in the recovery of the South African economy. There's a famous economist in Harvard who talks about what is the binding constraint on the South African economy? Why are we growing so slowly? Why are we creating so few jobs? And ultimately, the real binding constraint is this energy insecurity. Energy insecurity, because it means that there is not much confidence to invest. There's not much confidence to do new projects. There's not much confidence in even in our service delivery, because constantly there are electricity problems. So we need to see energy security as an important component of our economic recovery. If you see the slides there, in 2020 is what happened with that first wave of the pandemic. And we then saw a recovery when the dotted line starts to go up. That's the GDP growth in South Africa that begins to recover. The challenge is to continue and accelerate that recovery. And already the signs are that it's getting anemic. So there's been some bad announcements, there's simply roads are not going to be built, really bad infrastructure announcements. But the energy area is one where, if we get that right, I think it will create a wind under the wings of the GDP growth over the years ahead. And that line that's starting to go down again, economic recovery will be sustained. Now, the growth model of this ERRP that has been put in place to guide our economy is one of the mixed economy, what the Chinese call two strong hands. Private and the public sector are the two strong hands that have to play a role in lifting economic growth. And to strengthen that, the key is the restructuring of the energy sector, also rail and telecom. We've seen some very good reforms in the energy sector, which I'm going to reflect on now, and just to look at the value of those. And then there's also been other reforms, rail sector in initial stages to try and improve rail security and increase investment and private capacity on the lines that run through your province to Richards Bay and other lines as well, even though that take out food, and this is also an agricultural region, we shouldn't forget. And then the telecom reforms. Hopefully one day when you're sitting here, not in 2052, but sooner than that, you'll have 5G on your phones, not just 4G. You'll be able to even do things more quickly while you're looking at your phones and listening to me at the same time. The growth model is about that. It's about doing these structural reforms to lift the rate of economic growth, create jobs. Then the second hand, the state hand, becomes stronger if the private economy is strong. If there's more tax, there's more revenue. We can do increased school infrastructure, get rid of pittance, keep social support. All of those things can only happen on the basis of economic growth. Otherwise, it is pie in the sky. There's been a hint at this, that how do we conceive of trying to, I've said that the energy transition is a big risk. If it's not handled properly, the shift in investment into solar and wind, away from the historical patterns, if it's not done properly, we will have a situation where the workers who are working in the coal mines and the workers who are working in the coal power stations will be negatively affected. And that is a scenario in which there is a transition, but there's no just transition. It's just a transition, and there's no leadership who are thinking about how do we make this just? We just sit back, relax, and we can have a summit on something else. But if we want to have a summit on energy, it's how do we make it just? What are the pathways for those workers? We need to be engaging with those workers. I hope they are in the audience as earlier, and they are here. Those groupings to say, well, this is coming. How do we get ahead of this? In the future, some of these very old power stations will likely go. They're coming to end of life, some of them anyway. What are the job pathways? We have a new investment in this green energy hub. We're trying to attract investment into making a component and the inputs into solar and wind. How do we shift some of that work? And the thing is, I think the net effect of the transition will likely be growth enhancing. The data in the US and other countries show that, in fact, a lot of the renewable technologies are more labor intensive than some of the other technologies. And they do require constant maintenance, constant investment. There's an ongoing process, security of the maintenance of that. They are labor intensive. But the issue is, it's not just about the net economic effect, there will be more jobs. What about the specific workers who are specifically doing old-fashioned jobs, coal-oriented jobs? There needs to be a management plan to retrain, and reskill, give new opportunities. They might be in the energy sector, they might be in the components, they might be in agriculture, they might be in other sectors, but there needs to be a hand given to those workers so they are not left behind. Because they can put their finger in the dike for some time, try and resist it, but it's an irresistible change, and there has to be leadership that takes you through that change. So we talk in economic terms about backward linkages and forward linkages linked to this program. So what are backward linkages? So when we talk about the investment in new electricity capacity in wind and solar, a backward linkage is the equipment and technology that we use to build that solar wind farm. So that is your components of the wind turbine, components of the solar panels, all the steel work, the framing, all that must go there. Those are the backward linkages. And there is there is ongoing job opportunities there because of the size, the massive. South Africa is short of 6,000 something megawatts of electricity. That massive investment is required. What are the downstream linkages? The upstream is what are the components coming in. The downstream of the linkages once we have a renewable energy base. So you'll hear things, I suppose in 2032, you won't ask an economist on bits to come in. You'll probably have to ask a physics lecturer or a chemist. They'll tell you about carbon, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, oxygen. That's not really my field. But downstream is you can have green hydrogen. It's a new industry, a new technology. As Europe goes to war, unfortunately, Europe says we need to source gas and energy sources from outside of our historical linkages. And should we be bringing hydrogen gas from Namibia? Namibia is getting ahead of Mpumalanga. That's somebody who has got it. From Namibia, into Rotterdam, into Germany. Hydrogen is the green fuel of the future. Essentially, it takes the sun, the wind, and it converts that into hydrogen gas. It's like it's solar and wind technology in a bottle. It can be bottled and sent abroad. It can be sent here. So that is downstream. And there's other downstream potential as well. That's just an example. Electric vehicles. And that's Mpumalanga, I don't think we've got much of a vehicle manufacturing culture. But some of our provinces really need to think about how they're going to ensure that that transition. It wasn't long ago that you wouldn't be able to look at your cell phone while you listen to me. You would have no cell phone. Everyone would have a phone booth. The Premier would have said there are phone booths available for those who need to make urgent phone calls. But now, everyone has got a phone, a little computer in their pocket. That is what technological change is doing. That's what the technological change of energy production, as Dr. Alder said, is underway. And it's a global phenomenon. This change is going to cause all kinds of downstream changes to the way we electrify everything. So, what are the major interventions that South Africa is undertaking to make this energy transition successful? Doesn't feel like it is, but we're trying. And to make it just. So, some of them you will have heard of the integrated resources plan. Mpumalanga needs to look at that plan very closely and think about, wow, what is happening here? The integrated resources plan is the plan for South Africa to purchase more electricity and to purchase it in a different way from private bidders who say, I will build a solar plant, I will build a wind farm, and they take the bids to the IPP office that are planned for, and the IPP office says, which is the cheapest, which is the best, which is the one we will choose. In the last round, I think it's called bid winner 625 were chosen out of 70 or so bids. And then what happens in those areas, that's where those plants will be built. That's where those plants will be built. So Mpumalanga is securing those. Then another reform that has taken place is that there's a 100 megawatt reform. So allowing companies themselves, shopping malls, maybe even this ridge that we're sitting in, other places, to have their own electricity capacity, because they have such unreliable grid, such unreliable electricity at the moment that companies are saying, for the sake of our workers, for the sake of our product, for the sake of our profits, the only way we can do this is if we can invest in our own. And this is another risk opportunity dilemma. It's good for the companies because they'll have to invest quite a lot of money. I'm sure the mining people told you about this yesterday. But then they'll have cheaper electricity, they'll be green. They can say we're making green gold, green diamonds, green everything because it's green electricity. And it's cheaper and it's reliable. But the risk is for Eskom, and everyone defects out of that grid. At the moment, Eskom is saying, please do it. We cannot afford. We just have not got the capacity for you to do that. But for your municipalities in Mpumalanga, if everyone is defecting from the grid in that way, you need to find how do we still fund the grid? We can't charge the mines for using electricity that we're selling them, because they're not buying it from us anymore. So then you say, well, mines, you have to pay us for access to the grid. You have to pay us for wheeling things. So the bill that you get from the municipality needs to change. And not to be based on usage anymore, but on access to the service of electricity. Access to the grid. The grid is key. The grid is key. The national grid will always be nationally owned in my lifetime, I think. It will be nationally owned. We manage the grid is key. But there will be other players, there will be Eskom and other players, because they can pay correctly for that. And the firms and companies pay correctly for that. Otherwise, it actually doesn't work. There's no business model. It's just one. And then there was an emergency power program, which has become a bit unraveled, but we'll see how it proceeds. That's the famous car ships. Unfortunately, I think Mpumalanga is landlocked, so there's no chance for you guys to get any of those ships pulling up anytime soon. And then Eskom's restructuring. Eskom is doing quite a bit. Eskom is a public entity, state-owned, serving the public. It needs to be restructured. And in this restructuring, what we're really doing is we are restructuring a public entity to serve the purpose of this energy transition. It has to be restructured to serve this purpose of energy transition. It's not all of these doom and gloom, privatize, they're trying to collapse it. There's none of that. It's being restructured because of, it's like saying Telkom will never change. It must just build phone booths. It wouldn't have worked like that. ESCOM has to be restructured because the technology has changed. It has to be restructured. But I think I saw you making big waves earlier. I was reading the newspapers, everyone was still making announcements here. And so I'm not going to repeat all of that now. It was said yesterday. How much time do I have? Okay, 10 minutes, thank you. So just to look at some of the technological issues here that I find very interesting. ESCOM put this out in 2021. We look carefully here at this table number 1. It shows you the different technologies that exist for producing electricity. Yeah? So the first one is PV, it's solar. Actually, Einstein was the one who realized that by shining sunlight onto this plasma, it released electrons. Once you release electrons, then you can do anything with electricity. So solar, wind, gas, nuclear, and nuclear. Those are our options. You've got a shortage of electricity in South Africa, you've got load shedding in South Africa. These are our technological options. So this shows you the levelized costs of these various items. So 4.1 cents per kilowatt hour for PV, wind 5.4 cents, gas 7.3 cents, nuclear 19.8 cents, and nuclear 15.9 cents. So if you have to build a new nuclear power station, or you have to build a new coal or new solar power station, this is the cost of the electricity that it will produce. So you can see in terms of a low cost, it's not like South Africa is flush with money. In terms of a low-cost approach to fill that gap, the two that stand out are PV and wind. But you'll say, but sir, you want to ask you this, the wind doesn't blow every day. But sir, sometimes the sun goes down, even in Mpumalanga. So, what do? We need to have an energy mix in which we balance the system. In particular, gas has a specific role to play, because gas is easy to turn on and off, from what I'm told. It's easier to up it and down it as the need arises. So as the sun goes down, and also batteries will play a role. Batteries, you can store them. Batteries can play a big role. But the technology is not all there. So at the moment what we use is we burn diesel. I'm sure you've seen how much diesel we're using. So the diesel is used, it's meant to be called a peaker, the diesel. So as there's a peak, and you can't meet the peak, you turn on the diesel, and you burn 10 million liters of diesel. But during load shedding, we do like 50 million every day. I mean, this is not what these things are designed for. You're using the peaker plants for baseload. But what we're saying here is the more you bring on the cheap solar and cheaper wind, if there's a problem with supply, you need to have really clever people balancing that, and gas is a good option for balancing that. For wind and batteries, it's a good option. You'll hear people say, but nuclear is the cheapest in South Africa. I'm sure you've heard people say that. Nuclear is the cheapest. What are they saying? What they're saying is that to buy nuclear energy from Cape Town, from Kruger, which was built in 1970, 1980, that electricity is cheap now, because it's an existing power station. But to build a new nuclear power station is a whole other story than just using one you've already built. And that's why there's confusion in this debate as to what is the cheapest. So ESCOM will show you, our cheapest electricity right today while we're sitting here, that electron coming from Kruger, out of that light, it's cheap. But it was built not a long time ago, in a different time. We can't rely on what was built 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. We need to build new electricity generation capacity. Then we say, well, what is the cheapest? And then there's there was an American person who spoke about the inconvenient truth. What's his name? Al Gore. For South Africa, we are so lucky. We have a convenient truth. What inconvenient? What is our convenient truth? That we need to go decarbon, and it's the cheapest. It's conveniently true. There's no trade-off. You don't have to say, oh, we're going to save the planet but pay more. We're going to save the planet and pay less. So that's the convenient truth that we are facing. And this is because of years and years of investment by governments, by Chinese government, American government, in this technology. How does solar work? How does wind work? How do we get this thing to be efficient? So that's important. So, and then I can't really see the whole slide here, but the other problem with some of these packages, you see Kusile just around the corner here. It's taking a long time to build. You've noticed. It's taking a really long time to build. So we can't afford to say we will solve South Africa's load shedding problem by building things that take 15 years. We need as rapid. So not only the third convenient truth is that it can be deployed more rapidly. These are very important fundamentals. And there's the map of Mpumalanga that I showed to the Premier and her executive team not too long ago. And that is the story of South Africa's national grid, one of our national treasures. Mpumalanga is there, and you see everything comes from here. Everything comes from here. If we are going to go and say, some very clever friends of mine from this comes and says, but the sun is better. The sun is better in Khartoum, in the Northern Cape. It's the best sun in the world, they say. Or the wind is better in the Eastern Cape. You can say, no, I'm sure you are right, but they don't have the grid. So how are they going to get their sun and their wind onto the national grid? I think Mr. Director said yesterday it'll take him 10 years to get the grid to those places. 10 years. I can't live with load shedding for 10 years. We need to say, well, the grid is here, and therefore you have got, this is why you are ground zero. You can make this happen. If you can just see clearly through all of the jumbled facts and the political economy and the vested interests, if you can see clearly through it, you can do a big service to yourselves and to South Africa by leading the way through that. So there is the grid. So in the end, I just want to conclude by saying we need to have a forward-looking approach. We cannot look backwards. We need to look forward to from 2022 to 2032. This energy transition can lift the South African economy with growth and jobs. We need jobs more than we need electricity. But we need electricity to have jobs. Many coal firms will continue. I think it's going to be a long and slow transition. Don't get me wrong. Look how the coal price is shooting up now, all these troubles that are happening in the world. It's going to be a long and slow transition. But we must have a clear strategic approach through that. We must have a clear strategic approach through that transition. We try and find new employment pathways for the existing workers in those coal mines, in those activities. What other things can be done as those plants are closing? And what new factories can be built? For example, at Komati, I'm sure you know, they are actually they've got a factory there at Komati, where they are in containers building microgrids. So the workers can make the microgrid. The microgrid is in a container and it can be taken to a village that doesn't have electricity. It's off the grid. As much as I say the grid is a national treasure, there's many South Africans, billions, who are not on the grid. So we can say, well, we have the grid, and we're going to take microgrid to people, because we're going to have factories to do that. And then what happens is you open the container and it's got a solar panel, and then the solar panel's got a battery. And then the whole village can start to connect 20 houses to that grid for the first time. That is what's happening right now as part of the energy transition. So it's possible. That's a new job. That didn't used to exist. We have to create new jobs in this environment. And there needs to be processes of social compacting and discussion. I know we get tired of workshops. People like me love workshops. We talk and we talk and we talk. Some of you would rather more be action-oriented. But they are important. We need to come together. I was so happy when I saw we have a memorandum of understanding with Eskom. That is another big news story for me coming out of your Energy Summit 2022, where you work together and you say, well, how do we work? How do we make this good work? How do we secure this better? All those elements in your opinion are very positive, are very, very positive. So social compacting is not just about a big meeting in Joburg. It's also happening here between different parties. So an ongoing process. We need to unite the country around this vision of how we make this energy transition, which is going to happen badly or well, depending on us. How do we make it more just, more inclusive? Less of a problem. That's what our job is. So I think, Premier and Executive, thank you very much for your time.